I love the opportunity to travel, so each time I get it, I use it at a maximum. I spent a wonderful 3 days vacation in Portugal's capital city, Lisbon. I had no plans, I had no time to check out any travel guides, nor read any blog posts. Somehow I managed to discover amazing things and have a lot of fun. I'm going to start from the beginning. Although I knew that Lisbon was the city of the seven hills, first thing that came to view as the plane was preparing to land was the 25th of April bridge, which is a 2,277 meters long suspension bridge connecting Lisbon to another municipality, Almada, across the banks of the Tagus River. I saw it again during my stay in Lisbon, and each time it surprised me in a way or another. Even before checking out Lisbon, during a phone call with one of my best friends after I had just landed, I told her that I will most likely fall in love and leave a piece of my heart in Lisbon. Her comment was, "Jules, that's what you said about San Francisco." Later on that evening, while indulging in a glass of Sagre beer and a bite of pastéis de nata, it suddenly hit me. It might have this thing with cities built on hills that have an iconic red bridge. Thankfully, there are only 2 cities in the world that comply with these requirements, or at least that's what Google tells me. Otherwise, it would have been my doom. After landing in Lisbon, getting from the airport to the city is a piece of cake. I had to take the underground red line to the city center, and from then on another one, the blue one, to get to where I had booked my Airbnb. I realized that Lisbon has an amazing network of underground trams and buses. All I had to do was buy a 50 cents euros card, which you can charge with the desirable amount so that you can use further on. My accommodation turned out to be simply amazing. I rented this apartment on an Airbnb, and it was located very close to Praça dos Restauradores. My Portuguese sucks. Although I needed to climb a hill, I enjoyed doing it. Each time I needed to get back to my apartment, I kept discovering new things to marvel about. My apartment had an amazing internet connection, but the internet is pretty much free all over Lisbon. I just had to ask for the username and password wherever I was, and they would just give it to me. Well, wherever I went, I found extremely friendly people willing to provide me with any info I want, help me navigate the narrow streets of Lisbon's neighborhoods, or suggest great bars and restaurants. My first stop in Lisbon was Praça dos Restauradores, which is called the Square of Restorers. Portugal celebrates the restoration of their independence from the Spanish rule on the 1st of December, and that is a bank holiday. It was my first day in Lisbon, and everybody had time off. So the streets were filled with families, women, children walking around, leaving flowers at the base of the monument, or simply enjoying a sunny day out. The monument, which is located in the square, is an obelisk which on its sides holds the name and dates of the battles fought in the Portuguese Restoration War. At the base of the statue there are 2 allegorical statues symbolizing independence and victory. Since it was a national celebration, there was a marching bands parade and many official services held in the praça. Moving past it, I started toward what all the Lisbon guides named the most romantic place in Lisbon, one of their famous miradouros. These are lookout points spread across the hilltops of the city from where you can take in the beauty of Lisbon and indulge at the same time on a coffee at one of the kiosks. To get to the Miradouro, I had 2 options, either ride on a vintage tram or go up the stairs for quite a while. Of course, I chose to ride the tram. Gloria is a funicular, which can be found in the Barrio Alto neighborhood, and that takes you from Avenida da Liberdade to the Rua de São Pedro de Alcântara. The ride there is magnificent. The cozy small vintage tram, equipped with wooden benches and brass helms, reminded me of San Francisco again, and I fell in love even more with Lisbon. Along the route up, I saw a lot of street art organized by the City Hall in an open-air exhibition. Getting to the end of Gloria's line, I reached the famous Miradouro, and it was indeed what the guide described. It is a landscape terrace with busts of historical figures, a fountain, and kiosk cafes from where you may sit and admire the beauty of the city. I had my coffee overlooking Barrio Alto neighborhood and made more plans as to what I wanted to see. Walking down the hill from the Miradouro was easy peasy. It's the going up the hill that is usually the hard part, and I quickly started towards Rua Augusta Arch. To get to Rua Augusta Arch, I had to walk along the Rua Augusta Boulevard. The boulevard is actually a walkers-only zone, lined with various types of stores and nice small restaurants in the middle. It is such a pleasure to walk this path as it is filled with all sorts of noises, smell, tastes. Street vendors call you out, trying to get you to buy some of their merchandise. The chestnuts roasters are trying to convince you that the heavily salted roasted chestnuts are heaven to your taste buds, which they are if you are a foodie. The waiters showing you one dish or the other while trying to seat you at one of the tables placed directly in the middle of the street. The experience is an unforgettable one, and in the next day I found myself drawn helplessly toward this street again and again. The Rua Augusta Arch is the entranceway to this street from the Praça do Comércio. The monument itself is simply stunning. The beauty and the details of the architecture leave you breathless, and you are left with the impression that you might never be able to understand how such a beautiful thing was created. Built to commemorate the city's reconstruction after the earthquake in 1755 that destroyed almost the entire city, the monument has 6 columns and is adorned with statues of various historical figures alongside Portugal's coat of arms. The personifications of glory, rewarding valor and genius are extraordinary pieces of art, detailed works which impart an appearance of heaviness to the entire structure. The arch overlooks Praça do Comércio. The square is a symbol of Portuguese history and culture. Having been the residence of the royal family for more than 2 centuries, the buildings located here were destroyed during the earthquake in 1775, together with the royal library that housed exquisite works of literature and arts, but also official accounts of the immense maritime power that Portugal was in that period. Nowadays, it remains a favorite for street artists, and during the summer period, it is a favorite hangout place for Lisboners and tourists alike, with street musicians performing in all corners of the square, face paint artists making children happy, and young people sitting around chatting away the day. The square continues with Cais das Colunas, a beautiful sight with an historical impact that somehow it makes you feel small and unimportant. The steps which lead from the Praça do Comércio directly to the Tagus River, flanked by 2 vertical pillars, were the noble entrance of the city, where heads of state and other prominent figures have landed. The pillars, built with Masonic inspiration, represented the 2 pillars of Solomon's temple, wisdom and devotion. The place is now an extremely joyful and relaxed location for tourists and Lisboners alike, and I enjoyed myself immensely sitting on the steps and sipping my coffee. Once I managed to peel myself from the enchanting sound of the wave crashing against the eroded stone of the steps, I made my way to Cais do Sodré, further down Tagus River. The goal was clear in my mind, and my stomach was 100% agreeing to it. Lisbon's famous food hall. I am a major foodie, and I thoroughly enjoy delighting myself with new special food. I did not know what to actually expect, but I for sure did not see the following coming. This place is absolutely enormous, has an extremely wide variety of foods, and there is this constant buzzing which, if you are a big city girl like I am, miss from time to time. As soon as I entered the hall, I felt the good vibe coming off all the customers, tourists and locals alike, enjoying their lunch, a glass of wine in one hand and some typical Portuguese dish in the other. The Lisbon market has 65 kiosks selling regional specialties such as azeitão, sheep's cheese, Alentejo ham, custard tarts from Café Aloma, sardines, wines and chocolates. 5 top chefs have restaurants here. The original fish, fruit and vegetable market stalls occupy the other half of the landmark building. I opted for a cod fish specialty, which came in 3 types, all of them making me feel like I have died and gone to heaven with each bite I took. Walking back to Praça do Comércio, I marveled at all of the things, all having that exquisite vintage air. Lisbon has been a tried city, however, it somehow manages to maintain its beauty, its authenticity, and to overcome all obstacles. One of the buildings that caught my eye was the Lisbon City Hall, a marvelous building built in the neoclassic architectural style. Its monumental facade features a large pediment over a central balcony with sculptures and 4 oculi. Unfortunately, by the time I had arrived, the building was already closed for the night, so I did not get to see the imposing central staircase, of which I only read about. It appeared, though, that the site was a major photo spot, as I saw many people photo shooting. My second day in Lisbon started off with an extremely delicious coffee on the terrace of one of the kiosks that you can find all along the Avenida de Liberdade. This is one of Lisbon's major boulevards, and it is filled with shops, cafes, and restaurants. I did not actually have a plan of what to do in Lisbon, so I just planned things. I was walking down the boulevard toward one of Lisbon's largest squares, called Praça do Dom Pedro IV, also known as Rosio Square. This is such a lovely meeting place for both tourists and locals alike, surrounded by cafes and shops. It really is wonderful to sit there, enjoying your coffee, watching children play in the middle of the square, next to Dom Pedro's statue and the beautiful water fountains. One of the cafes in the square, Café Nicola, dates back from the 18th century. I had one of my dinners there, and I enjoyed the veal dish that I had. However, the menu offer is not very diverse, which was pity for such a nice location. From the Rosio Square, I made my way to Rua Augusta again, and then on the bank of the river towards one of Lisbon's most famous and old neighborhoods, Alfama. Walking from Praça do Comércio to Alfama is a bit of a bore, especially since my feet were already killing me from all the walk that I did the day before. So I decided to cheat a bit and took tram number 28 to the castle of São Jorge. The tram 28 is a major tourist attraction, and I completely understand why. The carriages appear to be out of this era. They actually are, since the one that is used on this line are actually the ones built in 1930s. They are a marvel to travel in and somehow give you the feeling of chicness. The tram line passes through some of Lisbon's most known districts such as Graça, Alfama, Baixa and Estrela, and is a delight for the tourists which are not accustomed to traveling in such a manner in carriages that screech and rattle through the narrow and steep streets of Lisbon. Tram 28 is not a specific tourist attraction. Tickets do not need to be acquired in advance. The locals use this tram as well, and it is delightful to see tourists and locals alike queuing to catch a spot on the tram. Since it is part of the public transportation, you can use your transport card, which is to be confirmed upon entering the carriage. My ride took me up the steep hill, close to Castelo do São Jorge.